Welcome to day 4, number 73, with the man Frank Scalish.
What number are you on?
83. How could I be 10 off? I was planning the whole thing right before we went on. I looked. I said, yeah, last week was 82. This week is 83. I'll tell you what threw me off, Frank. Recorded show this week. I'm currently up at the Mississippi River at a media event. But nonetheless, we have a fantastic show today. But I'll tell you what threw me off, Frank.
Tell me.
We got a full-size fridge in the studio, and every now and then Jeffries will get on my case because he still has his bowling studio and now his recruiting studio for SNU bowling out in the studio with the BTL studio. But there's no beverages left in the fridge, and of course you have to wet your whistle when you're doing a podcast and a show. You have to make sure. Well, the only thing that is left in the fridge.
Don't even tell me.
Unflavored sparkling water, which you have to be an absolute psychopath to just drink that straight without cutting it into anything.
Or have no taste buds like Mark.
Or V8. That's it. So I am sipping on some tomato juice.
Well, you got to go with the V8. It's just packed with nutrients.
It is. We'd like to introduce a new sponsor to the show. No, I'm just kidding. There's two full servings of vegetables in it. No, day 4, number 83, and this 83. Is one. This is one that I've been looking forward to. It kind of manifested itself organically over the conversations that we've had on day 4 over the past couple months, and something that I think is a lost art in bass fishing, both competitively at all levels and just fun fishing. And there's not that many guys that actually know what they're doing and how to do it. Fortunately, you happen to be one of those guys.
I cut my teeth on drift socks.
We
call them drift socks. Some people call them wind socks. Some people call them drag bags. I mean, there's a million nicknames.
Never heard
things.
That. All I've heard is drift sock, I guess.
Yeah, but it's a drift sock, and basically, it's a. Well, you know what it is. It looks like a parachute, and it goes in the water, and it puffs up when the boat starts dragging, and it slows you down. They're insane tools, and I have 3 in my boat, not all the time, but we'll get into that.
Okay.
In a bit.
I did want to note it's been up there for exactly a week now. And there probably will be some left, maybe not by the time we get to it, but there is a new color in the Super Spook that I noticed on the lurenet.com website, and it's called Superman.
Yeah, Superman to the rescue.
That thing looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sick, man. It's pretty sick color.
It's like clear with pink and a kind of a bluish splatter back on it.
Yeah, it's pearly. It's a pretty bait. It really is.
I say that in reference, like I said, I just got another email. Hey, when's the color 7 coming out?
I know. It's so we're so close. I've already seen them. So that means they're on the way. I've already seen them. They look great. They look just like the ones I painted, which is fantastic because that was a very difficult color to have painted. I have so many steps in that bait and so many layers to it, but they did a fantastic job. So you guys will be really pleasantly surprised when I say ready, set, go.
BTL and day 4 listeners will be the first to know about exactly when, where, and how they can get their hands on the spook and the color.
100%.
Color 7. That sounds weird. The color 7. I did that.
Yeah, but it was the funny
shows we've done, but
it was the funniest thing ever when you said that.
It was pretty good.
It was way too soon. That's what made it way so funny.
Yeah, he was just barely recovering from that.
That was way too soon to let that out. But it was great
moment. But something you probably won't be doing is throwing a top water with a drift sock. What'd you call it? A drag bag?
Yeah, drag bag.
All right. So if you're not from the okay, that's an Erie thing. That's a Great Lakes thing.
Yeah.
Great Lakes. Yeah, just if you're not from the Great Lakes, exactly. Just break it down exactly what the heck a drift sock is.
Okay. This.
Oh, you have an actual drift sock.
Oh yeah, this is a drift sock. This is actually Lindy's drift sock. Okay. This is their original series, and this is a 50-incher. Whoa, where did I go? That's a 50-incher. And basically, it looks like a cone, a parachute. For lack of a better word, it's going to be a parachute, and it narrows down at the end. So when it opens up, well, I'll have a diagram when it opens up. But this is a drift sock. Okay. I use Lindy's drift socks, and I'll tell you why. They, in my opinion, they have all the right sizes. And they have several different types of socks. So, but we'll get into that later. What we need to do is we need to talk about the actual process. You follow? Because this is not this here. Look, when you lay a drift sock out, boat control is absolutely critical. It's paramount. If you have haphazard boat control when you throw a drift sock out, it will absolutely reduce your fish catch rate. You will suffer because of it. You could not be efficient with haphazard boat control. So what we're going to get into is I'm going to explain to you the dynamics of it and then how to use it. And I'm going to tell you some tricks, some safety tips, and we're going to just go right in it. Then we're just getting right in it. So with my statement of boat control is critical, drifting with a sock is anything but aimless. Okay. If you're doing it properly, it's with a purpose and an intent. So first, let's talk about something first. If you throw your drift sock out over the boat, it puffs up, wind catches it, water displacement slows you down like it's supposed to do. Your boat doesn't track in a straight line. All boats track at 45 to 60 degree angles. Okay.
It's because of the way the hull's cut?
It's because of the way the angle of the boat is in the drift and the hull's cutting the water. So the hull's moving the boat. Okay. So you have to, your boat's going to track 45 to 60 degrees, right or left of the wind direction. Okay. So this has to be compensated on your initial setup when you set your drift. This has to be compensated initially. Okay. So you could turn your outboard all the way as far as it can go in one direction, and then this will act like a rudder, and it'll actually start to swing the nose of your boat towards the wind. Okay. So, and I'll show you a little bit in a minute. So you turn your outboard all the way, and it rudders the boat and keeps you at a better angle. Okay, you're never going to be perfectly perpendicular to the wind. It's impossible. You're always going to have an angle, front of the boat, back of the boat, angle drifting. Okay, so that's what that does. Now you can also drop your trolling motor. Use your trolling motor to nudge the front of your boat, nudge the bow in a direction, or bump yourself closer towards your waypoint. So when you're drifting to your waypoint, you can use the trolling motor to get close to it. All right. Now, I'm just going to preface this. If you set your drift up properly, you won't have to touch your trolling motor. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay. I'll show you how to do that. Because most of the time when you're drift socking, your trolling motor's spending most of the day out of the water anyway. So anyhow, that's that. So one thing that I have to say is that when you tie your drift sock off, okay, to your cleat, you always want the front side cleat, especially in big giant waves and heavy wind. You tie it on the front side cleat. Okay, you never, ever, ever attach a drift sock to the bow eye of your boat. Ever. What's going to happen if you put that drift sock on the bow eye, the front bow eye where you hook your trailer
Where
up
you
to your
winch it up.
boat. When your boat's going up a wave, the drift sock's going to be 6 to 8 feet in front of it. It's not going to allow the nose to come up. The drift sock's going to hold the nose down, and the wave's going to roll right over top of your boat.
Just going to eat it.
You are a submarine at that point. You never put it on the bow eye. You always put it on the front side cleat. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, here's the life-saving tip. If you are ever on the Great Lakes and you lose power, that's exactly what you do. You put it on the front left or right cleat, depending on how the wind direction is. Okay. And I like this is in waves of, you don't even have to be on the Great Lakes, just in lakes that are producing waves higher than 5 feet. If you lose power in your outboard, throw the drift sock on that cleat, let out 6 to 8 feet of line off that drift sock, keep it a ways away from the boat so your boat has the ability to do this. Okay. It will always position you in a safe position for the waves. You won't run into the danger of being at too much of the wrong angle and then having the wave come in your boat. So that's really a very good safety tip. It's a really good safety tip. Okay, so the next thing is, you hear me talk a lot about throwing 2 drift socks out. I'll have 2 out. So I use 2 drift socks when the wind is insanely strong and I can't slow down enough, or the waves are higher than 6 feet. Okay, so when I encounter waves that are 6 to 8 footers, I have 2 drift socks out. It gives me better boat control, slows me down enough where I'm actually maintaining that bottom contact that I need, whether I'm dragging a tube, throwing a Carolina rig, a football jig, what have you. What it does is when it slows you down enough so your lure is just going dink, dink, dink across the bottom. It's not grinding in and you're constantly snagging up, and it's not going where you can't touch the bottom. Okay, unless you go to like a 4-pound weight.
Real quick, when you say 6 to 8 feet, you're talking about Great Lakes rollers. You're not talking about stacked up waves in a lake where it's just absolutely insane. You're talking about navigable fishing waters.
No, I'm talking about brutal, mean, nasty water.
Like the Great Lakes stuff, but not where they're breaking, right? Are they breaking over when you do this, or are those big eerie rollers that are? Okay.
Sometimes they're breaking.
Okay,
curling.
Well, that's pretty savage then.
It's very savage.
All right, continue. I was wrong on that. I was thinking, you're thinking when you're out there and you got to catch them.
Yeah, exactly. So
okay,
here,
continue.
So when I'm using 2 drift socks, I put a larger sock on the front side cleat and a smaller sock on the back side cleat. The reason I do this is because I want the angle of the nose of my boat to always be in a position where the waves are coming in and the angle of the boat is not drastic and smashing into the boat. It's going to be a nice soft drift. You're going to drift down and it's going to be smooth. It's going to be soft, and you're not fighting the wave. So you always have to have your boat pitched at an angle, and I always want my nose more forward. I don't ever want the rear of the boat be in front of the nose, because then your waves are going to roll over the back deck. You always want the nose of the boat forward facing, okay? Not straight forward facing, but at an angle forward facing. That's pretty much how I do it. And you have it right when the boat's at a slight angle, the nose is in front of the rear of the boat, and it's a smooth drift. You're not smashing, waves aren't going over you and stuff like that. That's how you know you're doing it, you're doing it right. Oh, you know what? Here, let me show you. Duh. That is how you set the drift sock up.
You just have one out there. You have
if I had another one, it would be on the back cleat over here. Okay.
Motor's turned.
Motor's turned.
Trolling motor's down.
I have the trolling motor down in this diagram. There's so many times on Lake Erie where you can't even get on the front deck to put the trolling motor down. But that's pretty much how it's going to look in the water.
Lift it up just a hair.
The boat's going to be at a slight angle. Boat's going to be at a slight angle. Your sock's going to be, pulling this way, so the nose of your boat's going to be forward. The rear of your boat's going to be a little bit behind it. If you throw a drift sock off the back cleat, I make it a little closer to the boat and I throw a smaller one out there. So then it really keeps my angle right. Okay.
And all that's going to do is add more resistance, the second one, to slow you down a little bit more. It won't actually change the angle of the boat because you're still getting more drag from the bigger drift sock up front, which will keep that bow at that 45-degree angle into it and allow a softer, slower drift.
Correct.
That's a heck of a drawing, Frank.
Please.
How did you do that arrow to where it was like three-dimensional looking going backwards?
Very scary.
That's well done.
So now let's talk about, let me see something here. I got a bunch of drawings in front of me. Let me see what I'm looking at here. I'm looking for something. Matt, talk while I'm looking.
Oh, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what to talk about with drift socks.
I found
drift sock stories. I have nothing.
I found it.
You're on an island, Frank. But today on the show,
I'm on an island.
It's all you.
And I got to the island because I had a drift sock.
Yeah, safely.
And it saved my life. So I always carry 3 drift socks in my boat. I carry a small one, a medium one, and an extra large one. All right. I always have 3 in the boat. Now, if I'm actually on the Great Lakes specifically for any length of time, I might even have 5 in my boat. Okay, now that's not overkill because every one of them is a different size. So I can control my drift meticulously. Okay, and I'll get into some sizes and stuff later on in this episode. So I have 3. I carry 3 with me no matter where I'm at. All right. So now let's talk about setting up a drift, because this is what's really important. Okay, so when you set up a drift, what I like to do, if I have, and see, this was the lousy illustration I was looking for. So what I like to do is I set up a drift. Can you see that? Because I am totally not.
Just a little higher. There you go.
Okay. What I do is I make a practice line drift. Okay. So I'll idle up. If this is my waypoint, I'll idle up, and where I think I'm going to intersect my waypoint with the drift, I set the boat adrift, and then I let it track for a minute, and then I see where my line's going. So now that I know my line is here and I'm nowhere near here,
right,
I have to idle all the way over to here, and then I drop the drift bag, and then I see which way my track line is going. So I know by my track lines, all my track lines that I create, where I am in reference to the rock pile. Okay.
Okay.
So then I can shorten them and shorten my drifts or lengthen my drifts. So let's say I'm going to draw something on here, even though that's not what you're going to see on your locator, but I'm going to draw something on here.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you would see that because it's on a GPS.
The yellow one it's you said like a setup drift. So
this is my setup drift just to see where I'm going. So if this is my map and there's my rock pile,
that's where your bites are going to be.
Right. The X is the sweet spot. I'll set drifts up so I can cover all the breaks on the rock pile.
Yeah.
And so when I'm done, it will literally look like I idled over this thing 30 times. Because if the smallmouth move, okay, because think about this, whichever wind direction is. So if the wind direction is blowing this way, obviously, the smallmouth are going to position in front of this cover, the structure. Smallmouth always are upwind of the structure. Aggressive fish are never on the lee side. They're always on the current pushing side of it.
That makes so much sense based on what I just experienced at Oneida. Continue.
Okay, so that's the critical component. So when I'm done with this, here's what it's going to look like.
And this is a spot that if it was a glass calm day, you'd be able to roll out, drop the
Oh,
trolling
you could,
motor, and make casts
yeah.
to it.
Oh, yeah.
Drop vertically on it, cast around, hang out. So this is how you can fish a productive spot regardless of the conditions.
Right. So when I'm done with it, this is what my track lines are going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Very meticulous. Now, if this structural element is only 20 yards in diameter, I'm making short drifts over it. So what you see here where I have my turns, they would be here.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'm making super short drifts over it because I don't want to waste a lot of time drifting aimless water. Now, here's another thing with smallmouth, okay? This is also important. Wind's coming this way. We know the fish are positioned here. Yep. All right? Sometimes what they'll do, smallmouths are crazy. Sometimes, like, let's say this is 15 feet or 20 feet deep where the X is, okay? Sometimes they'll suspend out here. Same height as the high spot, but off the structure a little bit. So that's when I'll use the locator to tell me that, oh, I better redo my drifts, or I better go to a smaller sock so I drift faster to keep the bait more off the bottom. So these are things that you want to be cognizant of while you're using your drift socks, because everything that your locator tells you is a clue. Okay? They're clues. So let me see something here. I'll show you a fish position here.
Are you still dropping waypoints when you get bit on every drift?
I drop waypoints on two things: structural elements, and then if the fish are off the structural element, where I'm finding most of the fish. You follow me?
Yeah.
So I illustrated this book. Mark Hicks did it a bunch of years ago. It's called Lake Erie Smallmouth.
Holy cow.
So I illustrated the book. And so in here, this is what I'm talking about when I talk about smallmouth positioning on the windy side of the breaks and currents. So this is where all these fish are positioned now. You see?
Yep.
Wind's coming. You see the wind arrows. Mm-hmm. Wind's going into the spot. The smallmouth are on the front of the spot. So that's what I'm talking about when I say the smallmouth position in front, because the wind's creating a fake current. The fish are using it, and all your aggressive fish, that's where they're going to.
So oftentimes, if you're just looking at your 2D, then you're going to get bit as soon as the juice, you know, if you're like, holy cow, this thing goes for another 50 yards, you're going to get bit as soon as you see the juice, because that means your bait is trailing behind, which means you've already gone over the fish. So you're going to see abyss, fish, then cool stuff on the bottom.
Well, here's what's going to happen. You're going to,
that was a great illustration.
Let me draw this real quick. I have to get a piece of paper. No, I can use notebook paper. So here's what your graph's going to look like, and I'll do this really fast.
Because on Oneida, when I was drifting, and I did a ton of drifting, but not with a drift sock, I would get bit and be like, what the heck was that fish on? But then I would feel like that fish was on nothing, right? But then when I was fighting the fish, I would notice I was going over rock piles.
Right. So here.
That's because that fish was on the front side of that.
Correct. So
okay, that makes a lot more sense.
So here's what happens. That's what you're going up. You're going up the break.
Yep.
Okay. You're going up. God bless America. This is so hard. You're going up the break here.
Mm-hmm.
So you're immediately going to see it on your graph right here.
Yep.
You're going to see the drop, and then it's going to start to climb immediately on your graph. So you're drifting with a drift sock. You have so much line out. You got your bottom contact. By the time this gets to here on your screen, your lure's now going to be in the sweet spot.
I got you.
You follow me?
Yep.
So that's pretty much that. Okay, so now where am I here?
And the drift sock allows you to stay in that sweet spot instead of just blow through.
Right, because it's slowing you way down.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
All right, so that's basically structure fishing. So some of the stuff that I will look for, is stuff like this. Okay. So I know that when I drift over that, I'm bringing my bait up it. If the wind's, the wind's pushing me and I'm bringing the
Hmm.
bait up that ledge, which is how they want it. If this is the windy side of the ledge, that's where they want it. If the wind's coming from the other direction, the fish are going to be over here on it. They'll be on the top of it. And then I will drag down it. You follow me?
Yep.
So it just depends on the wind direction. Um, there's all kinds of neat stuff. This book is crazy.
Can you buy that book anymore, or is that
I
like
don't know if you
you have to
can.
hunt for it?
You might have to hunt for it.
What's the name of it?
It's called Lake Erie Smallmouth by Mark Hicks. I'm
I
trying,
believe
guys.
it's still available on Amazon.
Okay, good.
There it is, by Mark Hicks, Frank Scalish illustrator. Out of a possible you out of a possible 5-star rating, you have only gotten 5 stars on it. It is a 5-star rated book on Amazon.
This is phenomenal. This is phenomenal.
$19.99.
And it works for all the Great Lakes. It works for all your smallmouth fisheries up north and everything. So this is kind of like the perfect scenario, what you're looking for. Because now I can drift over this and I can tick the tops of every one of these high spots.
1, 2, 3. There's 5 sweet spots on that.
Exactly. And who's that guy?
Who is that?
That's me, dude.
No, it's not. Move it over the other way. Oh yeah, it is you. You weren't drifting there. That's a chartreuse spinnerbait up on a break wall.
You know that.
That is you. Holy cow.
I had to. Remember, and then you guys, I'm so digressing. This is like a flashback.
No. But that was an interesting deal. So you're talking about this. There's spots that are better suited for drifting because you're spending less time pulling and repositioning and more time hitting sweet spot after sweet spot after sweet spot.
Right. But I'll use the drift sock whenever it's necessary. This book is really fantastic, guys.
Yeah, it's
it really is. We got everything in there. How to position with the trolling motor into the wind. You see the wind's coming from here. The fish are on the windy side. My boat is over the top of the structure, and I'm fishing up the structure. Okay,
I got
so
you.
that's not drift sock fishing. So we're gonna put this away. But little nostalgia.
They're about to sell a bunch of those things. It is Lake Erie Smallmouth paperback.
Lake Erie
March
Smallmouth,
1st, 1999.
Yeah, this book's fantastic. And here, I was reading it the other day, and I was laughing my butt off because everything that I do still applies. We did this book a decade ago or a million decades ago, and everything I do still applies. So it's really a fantastic book. It was
almost a quarter century ago, Frank.
Correct. Thank you for helping me. It's not. This is not outdated by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. So now, and he did other ones too, like Lake Erie Walleye. Now I'm not promoting all his books. I just have them here because there's drift sock stuff in here too. So
Mark Hicks still writing for Bass.
Still writing. Mark's a good guy. He's still writing. I illustrated this book too. I want to show you a funny illustration. We were talking about ice fishing on Lake Erie.
Yeah.
And so I did some ice fishing illustrations. This is the funniest one. Okay. I drew the ice fishing just to the boots, standing by the ice holes. Isn't that funny?
That is. That's freaking good.
Isn't that hilarious?
You got your deucer down there, and that's either a world record perch or a keeper walleye.
Walleye, everything, dude.
Awesome. All right, back to drift
socking. Let's get back to drift socks. I got so much stuff piled on this desk. I can't stand a cluttered desk. I have drift socks all over this desk.
It's good.
Everything.
We're on track so far.
All right. So let's talk. I want to talk about some other uses for drift socks that guys don't take into consideration. Okay. So let's talk about inland lakes that get big wind, but they don't get huge waves. Maybe you're going to encounter 3-footers at the most. They get massive wind to them. you're going to do pretty much traditional socking, just like we just covered for the Great Lakes. You're going to do the same way I talked about it. Everything is the same. There's no difference. Okay. But let's say you have a lot of wind, you don't have huge waves, and maybe you're fishing grass edges or river channel ledges. Okay. So now you want to try to make your boat drift parallel to these.
Okay.
Okay, so you could fish effectively, slow way the heck down, and fish parallel. In this case, and only in this case, you can put the drift sock on the rear side cleat. Okay, you're not going to experience waves that are coming over the top of the boat. You're not going to have waves roll over the back deck as long as they're 3 foot or less. If you get into anything bigger than that, you cannot put that sock on the rear cleat. So, and I have to reiterate that. Okay, so now let's look at this little piece of crap drawing here.
That's another fantastic drawing that is way beyond my ability.
Okay, I don't know where I'm at. Am I in?
You're good. Just a tad to one direction or the other.
This direction?
No, other way. There you go. You're in.
Okay, so now I'm going to attach the sock to the cleat. The wind's blowing this way. This is my river ledge or my grass flat.
Yep.
Okay. This wind's blowing me this way. I'm going to angle my motor so the nose wants to turn into the wind. And I'm going to put the sock on this side of the boat, which is going to help cock the boat at an angle. Okay. Yep. And it's essentially going to drift me nice and slow down the edge of this grass.
Without blowing it out.
Without getting up here and always on my trolling motor back and forth. I can use the trolling motor to help steer, so I'm not constantly on it. I'm just tapping it every now and then to help steer me, to keep me running down this grass edge. Then I can fish effectively, whether if I'm paralleling the grass or if I'm actually throwing on top of the grass or flipping the edges. Okay. This is a very, very dynamic technique that I've done before. I've done it in Florida.
You've drift socked in Florida?
Absolutely. I'll tell you what I did in Florida exactly, but like this technique right here, this technique that I'm showing you right here, works on inland lakes where you don't have massive mounds of water crashing in on you.
Yeah.
That's the only way that you can do this technique, is if you have big wind and small waves.
Well, let's say you've got an 18.5 foot boat and you don't have if you don't have 120 thrust trolling motor, you only got an 80 thrust trolling motor.
Right.
I mean,
perfect.
That is ideal, because for $80 you're in on a drift sock, and now you're able to fish something effectively where otherwise you have that thing on high bypass. You'd have to go into the waves. You got boat slap. You're blowing out the edge. It's miserable. You can't do it, and your batteries are dead by noon.
And you're going to run out. You'll run out of batteries. You'll kill your batteries in 5 minutes.
So I wrote down like Pickwick, Kentucky Lake, Cayuga, Oneida, Gunnersville, anywhere that has the grass flats or distinguished ledges, even on something like a Wheeler Lake on the Decatur Flats, if the wind's in the right position, any of that stuff.
100%, dude. Now I'm going to tell you a trick. This is what I do a lot, especially on northern lakes when the smallies get into these massive grass flats and spawn in the open pockets. Rather than get on my trolling motor and try and position the boat into the wind and grind up all that grass, because now I'm actually on the grass, in the grass, I throw the drift sock out. And I let the wind blow me across the grass flat, and I pitch in front of the boat.
Stealth.
As I'm going, my trolling motor's not even in the water, and my outboard is trimmed up. And I got the sock out there, and I'm not making a sound, and I'm pitching in front of the boat, letting the wind push me down into the grass and pitching in front. I can slow myself down so much based on how big of a sock I use. Or if I have to use too little socks, you know what I mean? Because the grass is too close to the surface. If the grass is 4 feet from the surface, I can throw the big sock out. slow myself way down and pitch in front of it. A buddy of mine, Dale, and I were on Presque Isle one time, and the smallies were spawning, and we had insane, insane wind, and we couldn't fish. So we threw the drift socks out, and the waves weren't too bad. So we put them on the two back cleats, threw the drift sock out, let the boat drift down the grass, and we were pitching in front of the boat, smashing all these beautiful smallmouth. We could never have done that effectively without the drift sock. We caught so many bass that day, it was ridiculous. And there was a bunch of guys doing photo shoots at that time, and we were the only ones. We were crashing them, and crashing big ones too. So that's there's other uses for drift socks.
Why don't we see this? Why don't we see this on the BPT when they were just up at Cayuga and it was howling wind? Why didn't we see this on the Elite Series? Yeah, I want the truth.
A, it's a pain in the ass, and B, a lot of these new guys think spot lock is the deal, and that they can just spot lock it, and they fight and suffer through all that wind and waves when they don't have to. The other part of it is lack of experience. You know as well as I know, if $100,000 is on the line, you're not going to do something you never do.
Exactly. Okay.
You know what I mean? So that's a big part of it. You know what I mean? Is that. So now let's talk about the drift socks themselves. So here's the deal. I use the Lindy socks. Lindy has 4 versions. They have an original series, a fisherman series, a magnum series, and a wave tamer. Okay. The wave tamers are big socks. The magnum series has a big sock in it, but they still traditionally downsize. So here's what I carry in my boat. I have a 30-inch sock, a 50-inch sock, and a 72-inch sock. All right. Here's what I have. I have a 30-inch, a 42-inch, a 50-inch, a 60-inch, and a 72. Those are all the socks that I do actually have. All right. Let me show you the wave tamer. I'm going to show you the big one. This is a monster. So on the big one, on the wave tamer, on the big one. Whoa, I'm all tangled up here.
Here's real quick.
Yeah, there it is. So here's what I do on the wave tamer. And this is the only sock I do this on, by the way. I put a locking
holy cow
D-ring on it.
That's not messing around.
And then I have this, and this is heavy.
Yeah, what is that attached to then?
This is attached to the back of the drift sock.
Okay, and then
the back of the, all
what's
these
that metal thing you were just messing? What is the clip attached to then?
Okay, this is it. There's a loop at the end of all the.
Yep.
At the end of all the straps.
Okay.
You make a loop connector on a nylon rope. Make you could use the safety straps from a deer stand, that kind of rope, not cotton rope, not cheap crap. You need something strong. You make a loop on the end of it, and then you just loop connect your line to this. Well, the wave tamer sock is huge. I'm going to do this. I don't know. I'm going to back way up. Oh, shoot. I just dropped everything I own. Look at this.
Oh, my gosh, Frank.
I don't know. Can you see that?
The entire Frank. Frank looks like he's going as a ghost for Halloween.
Okay. Right that's the big wave tamer, all right?
I mean, that thing is 8 foot tall.
It's 7.5
foot tall?
I don't know. Go to wave tamer and look at their biggest one. 72 inches or something like that.
72 inches.
Yeah, it's a monster. So that's the only one I put that hardware on because I want that hardware to drop the bag down. Okay? I want the hardware to drop the cords in the water. And that's the only one I use it on. All my other ones, all I'm doing is a loop-to-loop connection with a strong nylon rope. Usually I use the stuff for like safety rope for a deer stand.
Okay.
And that's pretty much what I do. But these are all Lindy socks. They're fantastic. That the wave tamer's made out of like parachute material. The other ones are made out of, it's like it's a waterproof type non-breathable material. This
that
is
one right there.
no, the original series is what I'm holding up.
Okay.
The original series. And see this yellow one here? This is the one that when you get the drift sock close to the boat, the yellow one is the one you pull on. And what it does is it takes the nose of the drift sock, pulls the nose towards you, the drift sock rolls backwards so you can get it out of the water, because you can never get it out of the water trying to pull it up. Yeah. So there's always a pull strap. If you notice on the drift socks, there's always a pull strap. It's going to be one cord that goes the length from the nose of the drift sock all the way to where you tie your loop to loop connector. So when you get the drift sock close to the boat, you grab the pull cord and you start to pull it towards yourself, and it rolls the drift sock the opposite way so you can just lift it out of the water.
I got you.
And that's that.
So if I was a bass fisherman in a tournament, I have little drift sock or zero drift sock experience, but I'm saying, hey, I'll drop $50 on it and $60 on it and mess around with it. Are you going with the original? Like, just, I mean, I'm not up on the Great Lakes a lot, but I might be. What's the best all-around rugged four-wheel drive if you were, instead of, I mean, I'm not going to get 5 of them. I'm just telling you right now, Frank.
Okay, so if you're not going to get 5 of them, I would get the 50-inch original.
Okay.
And I would get a 30-inch. You need 2.
Okay.
You absolutely 100% need 2.
But a 50 and a 30.
Yeah,
will get the job done.
A 50 and a 30. Now, if you're a guy who really wants to get into it, I'd go 30, 50, 72. And then you're going to be set for everything. Now, the reason I have so many is because I can control the speed of my boat by changing different size socks out for maximum efficiency. This is what I'm telling you. This drift sock game is not happen chance. Boat position, boat control is the most important thing, and the speed that your boat is drifting at. So if I'm on a grass edge and I'm pitching and flipping, I don't want to go motoring down it at Mach 10. So I'll slow that boat down so it's like my trolling motor on a low setting, where I can manage going down that grass bed and pitch and flip. You see what I'm saying? Or conversely, if I'm on a big body of water, here, I'll tell you something crazy. Champlain, I potlucked an FLW event on Champlain and wound up winning $10,000. In practice, the lake, I had one day to practice. The lake was beautiful. It was almost slick flat. I got a lot of work done, found a lot of fish. In the tournament, in the morning of the tournament, I thought they were going to cancel it. I was standing around talking with Steve. Clapper was in it. Baylog was in it. And we were like, oh, they're not letting us go. They're not going to let us go. And they let us go. So when I got to my fish, okay, there was no way in God's green earth that I can put a trolling motor in the water, let alone stop myself from drifting with the trolling motor on high facing into the wind and still be going poof. So I just looked at my non-boater. I said, well, we're going to throw a couple drift socks out. We'll make a couple passes over these rock piles, and we'll see if we can slow us down enough, because it was honking. Well, Carolina rigging, we smashed them. We absolutely smashed them. If it wasn't for the drift socks, I could have never fished on those fish, ever. There is no way in God's green earth. I was in the middle of the stinking lake, right down the pipe. So there was no way I was going to be able to fish those smallmouth, okay? And we did some serious damage. We both walked out of there with a lot of money in our pocket. All right. No drift sock, no bueno. It turns the tournament to a completely different tournament for me because I would have had to look for more sheltered water to fish, and I would have been leaving potentially winning fish. You follow me?
100%.
So that's, you know, another instance where the drift sock was paramount. That's why my bass boat, dude, they're always in my bass boat, always.
I've told the story of Oneida before, and that's what I think also why I've been pushing for the drift sock. So you remember last year, I went up to Oneida and Thousand Islands, and off air, I said, Frank, I said, do I need this? And you said, absolutely. You said, yes, you need to learn the drift sock game. And I was like, well, can I come up? Is there any way? And I mean, like, you've got the, full-time job and you're busy. And then I was busy.
Right.
And I didn't do it. And I'm in the middle. I mean, dude, I am on the verge of qualifying for the Elite Series going into the home stretch. I will not forgive myself for this for a number of years.
It could have made a difference, man.
Well, listen, I go up to Oneida, and it's a tough bite, fall bite, September, or it's an end of August or end of July bite, beginning of August on Oneida. Go out on the big shoals, right? And yeah, I can catch them. I catch a few fish, and I'm on it. Have a decent first day. Second day, and that's the only place I had because I was, I'm committed to that. I learned it. Perfect drifting, sand, rock piles, everything. I mean, for 4 miles down this shoal.
Yeah.
So, there were 40, 50 guys in practice. There were 20, 30 guys on the first day. It was kind of bucking, but it was fine. Second day, straight gas. I mean, gassing. And I used to think everyone was exaggerating. And they're like, oh, let me tell you what, my bilge pumps ran the entire day.
Yeah.
No, they did. No, my bilge pumps ran the entire day. I told my co-angler, I said, bring your rain suit. It's supposed to be sunny. We're getting soaked. and I start out and I catch a 3.5. And I'm like, it's all good. But I look down, and I'm either eating waves over the bow of the boat with my Ultrex on high, my 112, and it's going, which they can't like that sound down there. And I'm still not able to fish efficiently, and I'm still going over 2 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going with them on the side, and I'm going like 3.6 miles an hour. My stuff on a 1/2 ounce drop shot is not even close to touching the bottom.
Nope.
I'm casting it, and by the time it gets to the bottom, I'm already behind it. So I do this for a couple hours because it's the only thing. I said, we're here. I've got one. I just have to get a window, and I know I'm not fishing it efficiently. You come up out of the waves, and there were 10 or 15 in the morning. Within a couple hours, there were 3 or 4 boats. By noon, there were 2. Me and Andrew Upshaw was out there. And guess what? Andrew Upshaw, experienced, had spent time on Erie with someone who showed him how to use a drift sock. And Andrew, every time I went by him at Mach 5 when we were doing our drifts,
he was bowed up on
He was
one.
culling. He was culling. And he should have had a mega sack that day. He had a really good bag that day, but he should have had a mega sack. I caught 1. Andrew had 2 drift socks out. I said, how fast are you going? He's like, 1.9 to 2.3 or some astronomically slow rate. And he was fishing the same drift lines within 50 yards of me, and he literally got probably a dozen bites to my 2.
Yeah.
And I looked at my co-angler and I said, it's because I did not learn that skill. I said, he is not just getting lucky. I said, he's got 2 drift socks out.
Right.
I said, that is skill and ability. That is him being a better angler than me and having more experience. And I am getting my butt kicked by him because I don't know how to use drift socks.
Right. And he was probably going 0.07 to 1.1.
What are speeds? Talk about speeds with drift socks? How much? I mean, you can look down at your GPS now. Almost every boat has them. What are your ideal speeds? What do you want to be drifting at when you're doing the drift sock thing, Frank?
Okay, so it depends what I'm fishing. All right. If I have to have what I like to do is make my lure just go doom 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 on the bottom. I don't want it grinding and dragging hard. So then I'll go below a mile an hour. Could be 0.05, 0.07, 0.08, below a mile an hour. And then I could downsize. I might be able to go to 3/8. You know what I mean? To get it down there. If I'm drop shotting, I start with a 3/8. But now I want to really slow it down because I want to be able to fish the lure. So I'll go 3/8 or a half. I'll keep my miles an hour below a mile an hour. But if I'm dragging like tubes or something, I might let it kick up faster. So the tube's just going tow, 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 tow along the bottom, not flying by where I can't get the tube down unless I'm throwing an ounce. You know what I mean? Because now you're moving too fast. You really, when I'm drift socking, I really want to be under a mile an hour, no matter what I'm doing. I want to be under. Now, if I'm doing it on a grass edge, I'll try to slow it down even more. If I'm flipping and pitching, if I'm throwing, toad style baits or spinner baits, burning spinner baits, I'll let it go a little quicker because then
Okay.
I can cover more water. But that's pretty much the rule of thumb. I slow it down until if I know the fish are there and I'm not getting bites, I keep slowing down until I start catching them. And then I'm very cognizant of that speed. That's why I have so many drift socks, because I want to make sure that I'm dialed right in. So I don't have to keep standing on my trolling motor and stuff like that. Because a lot of what you were talking about, that when the trolling motor comes out, slam, slam.
That can't be good because then you're drifting right over it.
Dude, I've seen on Lake Erie where I scatter them off of my deeper bumps doing that.
It's literally like taking a paddle and going wham on the surface of the water and then dropping your bait straight down and being like, I wonder why I'm not getting bit.
100%. They're moving aside. Like here, like I'll troll for walleyes too sometimes out here because I like to, I like to eat them. I don't like catching them. I like eating them. But
strictly a meat mission.
Yeah, it's all about the freezer. I like catching them too. I shouldn't say that. But the reality of it is I've seen where if I'm on my outboard trolling, that I don't catch them because I don't have planer boards. The reason they use planer boards is to get the lures away out to the sides of the boat. So when they're idling over the fish and the fish start to do this, they're going right out to the planer boards. Okay. That's what happens when you're not using a drift sock and your trolling motor's constantly in and out and slam in and out. You're pushing those fish away from you. And the problem is your strike window in that circumstance has to be almost vertical because you have no control on a long cast. So it makes it tough. The drift sock is a tool that you guys got to really, if you're really into bass fishing, you got to really look at this.
All right, I've never used one. I've never purchased one. I've watched your show. I've watched day 4, number 83 with Frank Scalish.
You sure it's not 70?
Yeah. I want to. How do you practice this safely, like not in adverse conditions? Like you have to be out there when it's windy, though, right? Like that's the only way.
You need a push. You have to have a push, but it doesn't have to be like suicidal. You know what I mean? I mean, you go out there when you got 10 to 15 mile an hour winds, nothing crazy, and what you do is you drop a buoy. Don't even worry about structure. Drop a buoy, hit your waypoint, drop a buoy.
Visually a buoy that you can see.
Visually a buoy that you can visually see.
Okay.
Use your GPS. Also, put the waypoint of that buoy in your GPS. It's important to do this. Then you go idle up around it and you say, okay, let's set our drift. So you throw the drift sock out, you turn your motor one way, you watch your GPS line. I showed you on that illustration, the track lines. You watch your track lines, see how they're going, okay? And then practice hitting your buoy. Practice trying to get that buoy. Then and say you want to make a longer drift, okay? Go way up in front of that buoy and see how accurately you can get within 4 feet or to that buoy. You know what I'm saying? Now, here's the cool thing about the buoy trick. You can stand up in your boat because you're not in inclement weather. You just got a little push going. You're not in inclement weather. Stand up in the boat, look at the buoy, see how you're drifting, and use your eyes to tell you, holy crap, I'm off my mark. And then bump the boat up a little bit and then let it free drift again and go, oh, now I'm going to hit that buoy. And it's easy as that. And it will literally take you an hour. And you'll be able to position yourself where you can almost hit that buoy every time you drift to it. Now, here's the thing. Remember, okay, if your wind's not ferocious, you can't throw a 50-inch drift sock out because you won't go anywhere. All right. So you got to throw the 30 or the 24 because otherwise, sorry, Matt.
I like it. That's funny.
Because otherwise you'll be waiting 3 days to hit your buoy. You'll be like, oh, man, I'm hungry. It's noon
It's
already.
just like a drop shot weight.
Yeah.
If you're trying to, yeah. I mean, it's all, I like it. All right. What else we got on drift socks?
This
has been very educational. That was very, very informative.
It's a show. Dude, I'll tell you straight up, dude. This is a show that I honestly never thought about. I grew up doing this. Heck, dude, I used to use drift socks in my canoe when I was a kid.
Interesting.
So, I mean, this is something it never even dawned on me. You know what I mean? It's one of those, it's like turning the turn signal on in your car. You don't have to think about it. Never dawned on me, but I think this show's fantastic because I think it's something that is so overlooked in our bass fishing world today. And it's such an effective tool that I can't imagine anybody in a bass boat that doesn't carry a couple drift socks. They don't weigh anything. You can fold them up and shove them in the bottom of a compartment.
I would venture to say 90% of guys don't carry drift socks. And only 50% of guys probably carry them. Probably 30% of guys carry them when they go up to the Great Lakes.
And probably only 10% use them.
It's a lost art, Frank.
It is. So here, look. Go to LureNet. Lindy's got tons of them. And in my opinion, they're the best socks out.
They last for years and years and years.
Dude, I've got them. I gave Frankie a bunch of them that I had forever ago.
You ever custom paint your drift sock?
No, I'm not. Are you kidding me? They come in dark colors, light colors.
This has been day 4, number 83, with the man, Frank Scalish, all about drift socks.
Yeah, I think they should make water camo color.
We'll see you guys next week.